Well, I mean, it's massively unpopular with the Canadian public. I mean, that's worth noting. I mean, at least over 60% of Canadians oppose this. They would like to see the airstrikes continued or ramped up. I mean, it's very important to understand is that Justin Trudeau, as much as he goes around saying that this is something he was elected on, no, Justin Trudeau was elected in spite of this position, not because of it. It's always been enormously popular. I think Angela makes a good point. I mean, we're tripling our amount of ground troops in Iraq, and I think that is sort of quite contrary to, I think, what sort of pacifist Justin Trudeau would like to present his image as being. I mean, the fact is ultimately Canada is a contributor in a coalition, right? You do what the coalition leaders, which is to say what the United States says we need to do. How can Canada best contribute to this war on ISIS? Justin Trudeau thinks he knows better than everyone. He thinks he knows better than President Obama. He thinks he knows better than President Hollande in France. He thinks he knows better than Great Britain. He thinks that he knows exactly how we're going to defeat ISIS, and that apparently entails sending more Canadians to be on the front lines in Iraq, to be in the most vulnerable position they can possibly be, rather than attacking them from the air, which seems to me like the most logical thing to do. This is a completely incoherent position. It really does, I think, is one of the worst decisions any Canadian government has made in decades, and it really gives me a lot of shame, frankly, to be a Canadian. When Stephen Harper, the former Prime Minister, first made the decision to contribute the Canadian Air Force to military strikes in Iraq and Syria, the Liberal opposition, the NDP opposition, in their infinite wisdom, you know, they knew better than President Obama, they knew better than the left-wing parties of Europe, all of whom support airstrikes. They decided that because Prime Minister Harper was in favor of this, they were going to be opposed to it. It was the most naked, knee-jerk partisan move, I think one of the most knee-jerk partisan moves in Canadian history, certainly in the history of Canadian foreign policy. As a result, Justin Trudeau has inherited this position that he took in opposition, and now he sort of has to cobble together some sort of intellectual justification for it. And I think you see the sort of grasping that Max has been doing right now in an attempt to sort of make it seem like the Canadian people voted for this, like that this was the great plank on which Justin Trudeau was elected, when all available polling data suggests the exact opposite. As I said before, Justin Trudeau was elected in spite, not because of this position. And I'd be curious to know how Maxwell sort of justifies that in his own mind.
Max, go ahead.
I think you're completely wrong. I think Justin Trudeau took this policy across Canada. He made sure that Canadians knew exactly where he stood on this issue, and they voted for it. It came up at every debate. It came up in every campaign stop, because it is a very clear stance on this issue.
Max, do you accept the premise that a politician can get elected in spite of an unpopular position? Because the polling data seems pretty one-sided. Like, the polling data suggests this is a
we don't make our foreign policy based on polls.
We
don't make our foreign policy based on polls.
What do we make it based on?
Because we make it based on what Canadians voted for. Because if we made our policies,
they didn't vote for this, Max. They didn't vote for this.
Canadians voted for this decision, and that's what Trudeau's going to do. Obama should be the one who should be telling us what we can do. We are allies of the United States. We are partners of a coalition that is supposedly trying to destroy ISIS. When the President of the United States says this is a bad idea, I think you should listen to him and not the partisan spin doctors or whoever else is dictating this.